And some things that should not have been forgotten were lost.
Just as the two lamps lit Middle-earth, coalescing at the Isle of Almaren, where the Valar first dwelt, there were two high pillars which held the lamps aloft. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, when in doubt, always follow your nose. In the north, there was Great Elluin, which shone a sky-blue light. And in the south, there was Great Ormal, which shone a golden light. Aule, at the prayer of Yavanna, wrought these lamps of gold and silver, for the lighting of Middle-earth amidst the encircling seas of Achaia. He then persuaded Melkor to build two great pillars, which shone like pale blue crystal. They were built so high, their tips reached the stars of the heavens, one to the north and one to the south. Aule would smite them with his hand, and they would ring like metal. But metal they were not, for Melkor had lied that the substance was imperishable, and in reality, the pillars were made of ice. Within the darkest corners of his mind, he knew all too well how to melt them and destroy the two lamps of Arda. To the north, and supporting Elluin the Sky Blue, was a pillar of Helkar, which means utter cold and Quenya. While to the south, and sustaining the lamp of Ormal, was a pillar of Ringil, which means cold chill. Isn't it funny how these two pillars resemble our two regions of the Arctic and Antarctica? They house our two poles, the North Pole and South Pole. Come to think of it, isn't a pillar a pole? The Arctic and Antarctica can be likened to two great towers, perhaps reaching beyond the atmosphere of Earth for a time. And then to Tolkien's estimation, they didn't, and Melkor melted their ice, and they caused great floods to pour into the seas.
History became legend. Legend became myth.
From the Silmarillion, Chapter 1, of the Beginning of Days.
And since, when the fires were subdued, or buried, beneath the primeval hills, there was need of light, Aule, at the prayer of Yavanna, wrought two mighty lamps for the lighting of the Middle-earth, which he had built amid the encircling seas. Then Varda filled the lamps, and Manwë howled them, and the Valar set them upon high pillars, more lofty far than are any mountains of the later days. One lamp they raised near to the north of Middle-earth, and it was named Elluin, and the other was raised in the south, and it was named Ormal. And the light of the lamps of the Valar flowed out over the earth, so that all was lit, as it were, in a changeless day.
Coming from the Silmarillion, Tolkien refers to the foundations of Elluin and Ormal as high pillars, and they are, quote, more lofty far than are any mountains of the later days. From this reference alone, we are reminded of our two poles of Earth, the North Pole of the Arctic and the South Pole of Antarctica. Did these regions harbor great lights upon their summits? How did the planets of our solar system become where they are today? From a previous video, I referred to the regions from where Elluin and Ormal stood as the two primordial realms of Niflheim and Muspelheim. Niflheim being the cold frigid Arctic, and Muspelheim the hot burning continent of Antarctica, which harbors a significant number of volcanoes. And farther back from that video, I referred to the two lamps as our two ice giant planets farthest from our sun. Elluin the Sky Blue being Uranus, and Ormal the High Gold as Neptune. Aule, with his spouse Yavanna, wrought the two planets of solid metal on planet Earth. Primordial Earth, that is. His realm is a solid state of matter in Eru's vision. Varda filled the planets with their energy, while Manwë howled them with his gas state of matter, causing the accretion of matter with Aule, and therefore birthing the first lights to shine over Earth. After all, the planets in Greek mythology were referred to as the Astra Planetois, the stars wandering, and so ancient cultures referred to the planets as stars, just as Venus is called the star of Jorundel. Could Tolkien be devising a theory on how Uranus and Neptune were created? A theory on the formation and evolution of our solar system? Let's look to the Book of Lost Tales, Part 1, to investigate further.
Now because of the darkness, Aule suited Melkor to build two towers to the north and south, for he purposed to set upon them mighty lamps, one upon each. These did Aule himself fashion of gold and silver, and the pillars were raised by Melkor, and were very tall, and shone like pale blue crystal. And when Aule smote them with his hand, they rang like metal. They sprang up through the lower air, even to Ilwe and the stars, and Melkor said they were of imperishable substance, of great strength that he had devised. And he lied, for he knew that they were of ice. That one of the north he named Ringil, and of the south Helkar. And the lamps were made ready, and set upon them, being filled with gathered light, silver to the north, and golden to the south. This light had Manwë and Varda gathered lavishly from the sky, that the gods might better explore the regions of the world and choose the fairest for their home.
Notice something strange to the locations of Ringil and Helkar? In the Book of Lost Tales, Helkar the Utter Cold Pillar is to the south, while Ringil the Cold Pillar stands in the north. Tolkien later swapped these pillars' locations in the Silmarillion, placing Helkar to the north and Ringil to the south. The very fact they were swapped like this further supports the theory. These two pillars are North Pole and South Pole, for they resemble each other in all aspects but direction on our Earth.
Now in that flaming light did they fare, east and west, and east was a waste of templed lands, and west great seas of darkness. For indeed they were gathered now upon those twilight isles, and stood there, gazing westward. When lo, the lamps to north and south flickered and fell, and as they fell, the waters rose up into the isles. Now these things they did not then understand, but it so happened that the blaze of those lights had melted the treacherous ice of the pillars of Melkor, Ringil and Helkar, and great floods of water had poured from them into the shadowy seas. So great was their thaw, that whereas those seas were at first of no great size, but clear and warm, now lay black and wide, and vapors lay upon them, and deep shades, for the great cold peppers that poured into them. Thus were the mighty lamps unseated from on high, and the clangor of their fall shook the stars, and some of their light was spilled again into the air, where it much flowed upon the earth, and made fires and deserts for its great volume, ere it gathered into lakes and pools.
These two great pillars melted and became seas. To the south there is the Sea of Ringil, the southern or Antarctic Ocean, while to the north there is the Sea of Helkar, the Sea of Utter Cold, or the Arctic Ocean. From the Silmarillion, Chapter 3, of the coming of the Elves and the captivity of Melkor.
In the changes of the world, the shapes of lands and of seas have been broken and remade. Rivers have not kept their courses, neither have mountains remained steadfast, and to Cuiviénen there is no returning. But it is said among the Elves that it lay far off in the east of Middle-earth and northward, and it was a bay in the inland sea of Helkar, and that sea stood when aforetime the roots of the mountain of Elluin had been before Melkor overthrew it. Reading later on, it is told that when the host of the Eldelier departed from Cuiviénen, Orme rode at their head upon the Har. His white horse shone with gold, and passing earthward above the Sea of Helkar, they turned towards the west. Before them, great clouds hung still black in the north above the ruins of war, and the stars in that region were hidden. Then not a few grew afraid and repented, and turned back and are forgotten.
Where else did Melkor's spirit, his spirit of storm and thunder, begin to delve his great fortress of Utumno? In the far north, from which Elluin once stood on the pillar of Helkar the Utter Cold, where the North Pole now resides in the region we call the Arctic, both a land and ocean, just as the Sea of Helkar was once a tower. Finally, to my last point, I want to share with you the Helcaraxe, the Arctic ice pack to which the Noldor trekked across on their great exile from Aman back to Middle-earth. From Chapter 9 of the Flight of the Noldor.
The Noldor came at last, far into the north of Arda, and they saw first the teeth of the ice that floated in the sea, and knew that they were drawn nigh to the Helcaraxe. For between the land of Aman, that in the north curved eastward, and the east shores of Endor, which is Middle-earth, that bore westward, there was a narrow strait, through which the chill waters of the encircling sea and the waves of Belagare flowed together. And there are vast fogs and mists of deathly cold, and the sea storms were filled with clashing hills of ice, and the grinding ice of deep sunken. Such was the Helcaraxe, and there may it have dared to tread, see the Valar only, and Gulliant.
Isn't it obvious? The Helcaraxic grinding ice draws near to the far north, where the Sea of Helkar is. The Arctic ice pack, with its teeth of ice floating amongst the sea, serves as an immense obstacle to which the Noldor must have crossed. And so that's the quenta of the two pillars, Helkar and Ringil, and the two poles of the Arctic and Antarctica. This shall be my last video to conclude the two lamps, illumine the sky blue of Uranus, and Ormal the high gold of Neptune, with the two Norse realms of Niflheim to the north and Muspelheim to the south. The Noldor would trek across the Helcaraxic grinding ice to Beleriand, the continental Atlantis of Tolkien's Legendarium, where elves, such as the likes of Turgon, would settle in Niflheim, just beside the Helcaraxes, or upon Greenland, where the Arctic ice pack creeps upon the North Atlantic Craton, where the Paleozoic-era microcontinent of Avalonia, containing the east coast of North America, the UK, and Western Europe, once resided together with Greenland and Iceland. But that's another theory for another time, only on the Quenta Accords.
Down from the door